How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. This is a show about movies. My name is Chad. With me is Eric. And last week we reviewed the movie Old from M. Night Shyamalan. We were split on that movie, but actually pretty close, but maybe just a little bit, a little bit off. But this week,
support is unbreakable. Sorry.
all the signs, Eric, point to us doing a whole show about Shyamalan.
We may be talking about one filmmaker, but it takes the village to really get a movie off the ground.
That's it. It's very, very true. So, yes, that is what we are going to be discussing this week. The career of M. Night Shyamalan. As I said in our previous episode, he has directed 14 movies, but he has had a pretty long career overall. So we'll just go over a little bit about him here first. He was born Manoj Nelliyattu Shyamalan, and he was born August 6, 1970. He was born in India, but he was raised in Penn Valley, Pennsylvania. His movies have grossed over $3 billion to date. And so he ended up going to the New York University Tisch School of the Arts in Manhattan. He graduated in 92, and it was there that he adopted the Night part as his second name, thus dubbing him M. Night Shyamalan. He wanted to be a filmmaker from childhood, and I guess made a whole bunch of home movies with a Super 8 camera that he was given. His parents wanted him to be a doctor, but he wanted to pursue film work. So that is basically what brought him to becoming a director. His first film was semi-autobiographical called Praying with Anger. He made that while he was still a student and used the money that he got borrowing from family and friends. He then directed a movie called Wide Awake, which dealt with a 10-year-old Catholic schoolboy who, was dealing with the death of his grandfather and searches for God. That movie had Dennis Leary, Rosie O'Donnell, Julia Stiles in it. Most people probably haven't seen it. I know I haven't. Eric, have you seen Wide Awake?
I have not, but I have seen something about Praying with Anger too. Is that he's also the lead of the movie?
Yeah.
Which, as we spoke about last one, his acting in all of his movies, but right. Now he is the central character. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Some things that people might not know about him is that he co-wrote the screenplay for Stuart Little, and in 2013, it was revealed that he was a ghostwriter on the 1999 film She's All That. Did you know that, Eric?
I didn't know that. No, I guess
I know you're going to go rewatch it now. Looking for those twists.
It makes sense because remember, the twist is that they're actually they're high school dropouts, and they.
The twist is that they're portraying high school students, but they're actually in their mid-30s.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect.
But yeah, so other than doing some script work, he obviously gained his recognition when he wrote and directed the 1999 film The Sixth Sense, which became the second highest grossing horror movie of all time. He became a name after that movie. And so obviously after that, he would continue to direct many movies, which we will discuss as we go along here. But Eric, was the first movie that you had heard of him from The Sixth Sense, much like myself?
Yeah, definitely. I can't recall exactly. It would have been, I guess, that summer of 1999.
Yeah,
and I feel like everyone. It's cool now thinking back, like that, and I think Blair Witch were like the same summer, and I felt like those were the two things that everyone was really talking about in a way that you probably is, different nowadays. I don't know if it's the same way.
And I remember seeing The Sixth Sense, and I don't think I was lured to see it based on people telling me, "Oh man, there's this huge twist." I saw it in theaters with a friend, and when the twist was revealed, we both looked at each other, kind of like, that was a big moment in movies, where you really do start to look at the director, the writer, as opposed to, or maybe in addition to, some of the stars of the movie. But yeah, that movie was very creepy, and the twist just came way out of left field. I don't know of anybody who was like, ah, yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah, and also just like the fact that it was had a lot of staying power. And it was in theaters for like months. And it was
Right,
like
that's
number
true.
one for like a very very long time too. So you would think that
That time is over.
yeah, that time is definitely over. And you would think that yeah, the whole twist aspect, once that is quote unquote ruined for somebody, but no, I mean it continued on with such a strong life for a while.
Right, and so the twist would become his calling card, which was obviously a double-edged sword for him. He would follow up The Sixth Sense with Unbreakable, which also starred Bruce Willis, and that movie was pretty well received. And then 2002, he would bring us Signs, and then in 2004, you would have The Village. The Village was his last movie that he made with Buena Vista Pictures. And you tell me if I'm wrong, Eric, but I would say The Village is where people started to lose a little faith in him. Now, I would hardly say that's his worst movie.
Yeah.
I thought the twist of The Village was okay. It's actually the movie that preceded it that I don't remember anything of. Like, I just
No,
don't. I remember the twist of it, but the characters and like the bulk of the screenplay, I just don't remember a lot about it. But I would say that movie to this day, I hear polarizing opinions of. Like, I'll
that's
have somebody
good.
be like, "Oh yeah, that was good," and other people be like, "Oh, that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life." It's
Uh, for the village, I actually really like the village. Like I don't think it's, and now I've seen that like there's some children's a young adult novel that's pretty much the same plot essentially. But regardless of all that kind of stuff, like I don't know, I think that the twist stuff works pretty well. And I also think they're like enough. What I do like about M Night Shyamalan as a director too, away from the whole twist thing, is that I do think there are some like individual scene sequences that are really really striking and really really strong in all of his movies, regardless of the plot that it's being encompassed by.
absolutely.
Um, and there are scenes in the village, and it's a beautiful score by I think James Horner, I want to say. And there's like a kind of like a classical, given the time period that it's
His
supposed to
scores
be.
are always the scores that he has in his movies are always pretty solid.
Yeah, and they definitely in the movie looks lovely, and the colors of red in that movie with the hoods that the we think of the creatures are wearing and yada yada
Right.
yada. And I think sometimes people harp too much on. Now this is partly due to him becoming known as like the twist guy, whereas I felt sometimes they were harping too much on that part, and that's why I think then he started feeling these expectations to almost like deliver on that. And um,
Right, because by that time, and when I said that I think this was the moment where people started to lose a little bit of faith in him, I think it was because of the fact that by this point people were looking for that twist.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
went into the movies not necessarily paying attention to everything going on, but trying to predict or look at what the surprise and the twist might be. And when not every twist is on the level of shock factor that The Sixth Sense delivered,
Yeah.
then people might consider that a disappointment. I didn't, I thought that The Village was okay. Is it my favorite of his movies? No, but I I didn't mind the twist. There are other people that felt differently,
Yeah.
that didn't like it. But
It's got he's also like in our opinion probably like old notwithstanding perhaps like he is usually very very good with actors usually.
that's true.
And I think the village is a really strong. William Hurt is excellent, I thought, in it.
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard. Adrian Brody thing has not aged well. It didn't age well at the time either, but he's Joaquin Phoenix, he's used in Signs and the village, like I think that's one of the stronger ensembles. Uh Francis Conroy, maybe. Yeah, but like, yeah, I think that's one of the better examples of
That's true, and
ensemble. Yeah.
people a lot of times don't talk about that. They only really pay attention to his stories or his scripts, and like kind of. I would say, maybe it's on purpose, or maybe he deserves it, maybe he doesn't, is that people maybe overanalyze some of his scripts. But he does work well with actors. I would say that. Like his most recent movie, Old, that movie had some acting that was a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would say he does pretty well with actors. Now we're going to point out some examples where he doesn't.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say he does.
He's
All right.
definitely got some of the, it's definitely one of the best, I think, like one of the best Mel Gibson performances, one of the best, Bruce Willis performances. Like, at least in the early years, it was a strong streak of definitely best Bryce Dallas Howard performance. I mean, he's not less.
I would argue, apart from Die Hard, maybe that I don't think there's anybody that knows how to use Bruce Willis better. I really don't, because I mean, Bruce Willis is not a super strong actor in terms of range. Like, he just isn't. But Shyamalan knew how to, make his acting very subdued and kind of scaled back, and kind of focus on the strengths, not as much on the weaknesses, which worked in Unbreakable and in The Sixth Sense. And
I mean, The Sixth Sense, I feel like it has one of the best child performances ever. You'd say, right? Like, yeah, I mean, Tony Collette.
Absolutely. So, Eric, what is your least favorite of his movies?
For me, it would be The Happening. I haven't seen it in a long time, which I guess proves that it's my least favorite. But I do remember even at the time, and again, I'm realizing it's a little hypocritical as I say it, because it's hard sometimes to divorce yourself from the marketing of the movie at the time. So like The Happening was also billed as like his first rated R movie, and blah, blah, blah.
I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah, as if anyone would really say, what an M. Night Shyamalan movie needs more of gore. Like, I feel like he's
right. Yeah.
And at the time, that one felt where the big shift happened in terms of acting styles, and that everyone, much like Old, I feel like is doing something very, very different as actors, and it became much more. I don't know if sincere is the right word, to a point where I think that does elicit laughs at times, and then I mean, you get the classic. I don't know if it's a classic meme, but like Mark Wahlberg literally does talk to plants. He's got like a whole scene where he's talking to a plant, and he's not the best actor in the scene. I mean, it's a pretty good plant.
That's a weird cast. Like that's just a weird cast. You have Zooey Deschanel, John Leguizamo, Mark Wahlberg. None of those people, like, all those people have their strengths, and they have their play, like, but none of those people are super strong actors. And to put those three in a thriller is a really big risk, and not mentioning the fact that the screenplay was not very good at all. And I don't know. That movie is terrible. I wonder though, like, by this time, we had talked about, back when we did the 411 podcast, whether or not he being Shyamalan, had a person that would tell him when an idea was good or bad, who would tell him, hey, cut this part out or leave this part in. Like, it felt like everybody around him just kind of followed his lead and agreed with everything that he said, and been like, oh, you're the best, you're this, you're that. And I wonder if it was like partly succumbing to his own hype, but at the same time feeling pressure to be this kind of thriller genius in the vein of Hitchcock. And you mentioned in the before about all the hype and Hitchcock comparisons, and certainly early on that's what everybody was saying. And in addition to the twist part of it, that's a tough act to follow. And when you then believe it yourself, which I don't know the man personally, but you would have to say that was an issue at some point.
Yeah. And I think that to me, it was also shifted. Now people have gone back a little bit to The Happening, and like, once you see it, like, I guess how we now assess Old, where it's like more of like a morality play, like a Twilight Zone episode, where things maybe are a little bit more blunt.
Right.
The Happening is very uh, eco horror,
What's funny is that Wikipedia describes it as a B movie, which I find very
Oh,
bizarre.
maybe
Like,
in
I mean,
retrospect. I mean, at the
I
time,
realize I
yeah,
realize B movies, the definition of a B movie is not the same as it once was. But you know, if when somebody says something like that, or they like, oh, it's a B movie, are they just trying to say they like it despite the critical failure? I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I do think that like my expectations. If I were to see it again, my expectations would be drastically different, obviously, because
would you see it again?
uh,
I'm
as
sorry to put you on the spot.
as a B movie, I'd have to see an A movie first, and then the drive-in. You drink a little bit and you smoke a little bit, then you say, okay, we'll watch this. And it's also, I'll give it props, like 90 minutes, which which I appreciate.
I'll do that. We'll get drunk and we'll watch The Happening.
Yeah, I think actually that could be pretty fun, to be honest with you.
But yeah,
I mean,
I can think of worse movies to watch while you're drunk.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think on that, watching them at the time as they were coming out chronologically, um, this felt like a pretty big drop off. But
Yeah.
I know we jumped over one where there was also a different kind of transition to Lady in the Water. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say this about his movies. His movies were always pretty much. I would say there's one period where that wasn't the case, but like pretty much always events. Like the fact that he was able to early on deliver a movie that put him on the map right
Yeah.
away, and then every movie that followed, people were like, "Oh, he has a new movie coming out."
Yeah, I was trying to think of another example, recent or of a director who still has that kind of market value of a name brand.
I mean, there's older directors that certainly have it,
Sure.
but
Tarantino, Scorsese. I mean, but
yeah,
like post Shyamalan,
there's there's not
it's
many. I can't think of very many
yeah.
either. I mean,
Just in general, like even I mean the horror genre, I feel like good luck. I don't think Ari Aster is a name
not yet,
mainstream,
not
or
yet. Yeah,
it would be very difficult to see. I remember back in the day, the joke was like you'd see a trailer for a movie that looks really cool, and then it would say written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and people would groan.
yeah. I
Whether
was
or
at
not,
I was at the theater many a times where those reactions were heard.
really? Okay, I was gonna say it might be an urban legend, but
No, no, yeah, that
uh,
happened many times. Like there would be a movie trailer that started, and they would, he was never one to shy away from his name being there. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
name would always be pretty prominently displayed, and then people would react.
It went from being a selling point to a detraction in around this time period.
Right, but yet at the same time, and you're right, but at the same time, no less seeable. Like people still wanted to see his movies, and most of them were box office successes. Despite the fact that a lot of them, even The Happening, was a box office
Yeah.
success, even though it was very terrible. Um,
But dwindling at that point, right? I feel like you said like I feel like The Village is like the one where I think it does, for
yeah,
right or
well,
wrong, burn some audience bridges where it seems like Lady
his
in the Water did not really, yeah.
I mean, his least successful film, from a financial point of view, would be Lady in the Water,
Yeah.
which had a budget of 70 million and came at the box office for 73. So it was just kind of breaking even there, I guess. But most of his movies made money, and so your least favorite is The Happening. That would probably be a close second for me. But one that I aggressive like, but there are parts of The Happening that I laughed at, and so like it wasn't
Yeah.
the most. It like there was a movie that was less enjoyable to me, and that was After Earth. Um,
I have to admit, I haven't seen it. I
that's
have to
okay. That's
admit.
okay. I hated After Earth. This was, in the period of Will Smith's career where he was very much concentrating on his children, and this one, featured his son Jaden, and it was terrible in every way. Um, and it's one of those movies that you wish that you hadn't seen. um,
And
yeah,
it was definitely a big career, like because right before that, that's where why I kind of checked out for a few years, because he then seemed like he was a director for hire,
Right.
right? With the Last Airbender, which
Right. And yeah. So
then I checked out completely, and then I never saw After Earth because they just felt like he was hired to direct these because I think he wanted to get away from being the twist guy. But
exactly. No, yes, exactly. And so he co-wrote the screenplay with a different person, and I guess the story came from Will Smith. It's a sci-fi movie for those who probably haven't seen it, and there are probably a lot of people who haven't seen it. But it takes place in the 31st century. The Earth has been long abandoned, and humans have been in conflict with a mysterious alien race. Will Smith is a high-ranking general in a peacekeeping organization, and his son, after an incident during a space flight, find themselves fighting for survival on a hostile planet, which ends up being Earth itself. That's not a spoiler. That's just what it is.
wow, wow. I
It's
love how specific it's 31st century.
yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah. So the Last Airbender is also not good at all. That was criticized for many different reasons. Using white actors in a film that's supposed to be, mostly Asian people of Asian descent. I think that one was, at that point, probably intended to be the start of a franchise.
Yeah.
As
It was a Nickelodeon
yeah,
series.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, it
Yeah.
was a very popular show. So I think that was the plan there, but it's just stupid. And if I was ranking all of his movies, I would say, The Sixth Sense up until Signs, like I liked all those movies fairly equally. But then The Village, I still liked it, but it was Lady in the Water where I really started to be like, okay, like this guy is this. There's some issues here, because as you're watching Lady in the Water, part of you is like soaked into the story for a little bit. At least me, like I
That's a
was
good
soaked.
one too. Soaked water. That's a good one
I
too.
was I was absorbed into
Okay.
the
You
story.
were drowning in the plot details.
That's right. And then there was a point where I'm like, this is really dumb. Like, like there's a part where it hits you. At least that's the way it was with me. I was just like, okay, this is really stupid. Like, this is just all really stupid.
Yeah. And for me also, like looking back now, that feels like a transition movie in a sense. Like I don't dislike it as much as The Happening, but I
Right.
think it's definitely a step down from The Village. And that's also where I feel like he's kind of, because I think that one was sold as like a story, a bedtime story he would tell his children.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and, and so it was not going to be. I feel like they were really trying to say like this is not horror. Really, don't come in expecting
They were
horror.
they were definitely trying to market that one as a
Fairy
movie that
tale.
was not of his norm. Like they were not trying to convince you that there was some big twist there. But I feel like even though they tried to do that, it didn't work.
Yeah, I think the movie, and maybe this is one I would also, I will give him this. I would like to actually revisit some of these movies because again, this is another one I have not seen in a very long time. But I think that Paul Giamatti I think is really really good. He does
Mhm.
another good performance, and there are also some really bad performances in that movie. But I think he's pretty a solid anchor to that. But I think this is also the transition where he starts getting blunter with the writing and
Right.
the symbols of. I mean, I now kind of give him credit for this because I fell into the trap at the time. But like he casts himself as the writer who can change the world in the movie.
Right.
Um, which I mean, is there a bigger humble brag than? I
Yeah.
mean, now I applaud that. At the time, I fell into the, and Bob Balaban plays a critic, which means he's a terrible human. Even as he's about to be eaten alive, he's criticizing the plot details. And again, now if I went back, maybe I'd say this is, it is meta, obviously, but that wasn't really hitting as wise or smart at the time. Maybe it still wouldn't be. Again, this is a blunter, in your face style of writing that he
Right.
now I feel like I know him more for now post
Right.
Lady in
It
the
would
Water.
That one would be another one that would be interesting to revisit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think at this time though, I think people were just kind of getting tired of maybe the fact that he wasn't delivering what they wanted him to deliver. the fact that he would appear in all of these movies, that maybe his movies were a little bit too braggadocious at times, in terms of, what he could deliver as a filmmaker. Maybe he didn't check himself, I guess.
Yeah,
You know,
it's still. I think that one was shot by Christopher Doyle, Wong Kar Wai's cinematographer. Like, so there's still like elements and images that stick in my mind.
right.
Yeah, her in the tub, right?
Yeah, yeah.
At the pool outside in the rain, and those narfs or whatever the hell they're called, things,
You mean
wolves,
Smurfs?
Smurfs. The Smurfs show up. That was the twist. The Smurfs show up. So there's some cool stuff there. And also just thinking of his movies, like he actually has a lot of like cool like theater actors like right in supporting roles in cool ways. That
Yeah.
in that one it's Bill Irwin,
He used
and
a lot of good people in Lady in the Water. It just wasn't.
Jeffrey Wright.
It wasn't necessarily their fault, but
Yeah, yeah. I think like Cherry Jones and yeah, a whole bunch of people. In the another Kathleen Chavant in old. She's the old mom,
oh right, yeah.
grandma, if you will.
That's the thing. People wanted to, and probably still do to an extent, wanted to work with him, because they saw what types of movies that he could deliver, and the type of performances that he could elicit from some of his actors. Lady in the Water, though, he was kind of jumped around studio wise after the with the start of this one. Lady in the Water was Warner Brothers, then The Happening was 20th Century Fox, then The Last Airbender was Paramount, then After Earth was Sony, and to date he has been with Universal. So his last four movies have been all with Universals. It does feel like he's kind of settling into I hate to say groove because that makes it sound like the movies are better than what they are, maybe, but I do though think that he's settling into a comfortable spot in his career where maybe the pressure is off a little bit. I still think though the twist thing has not completely left him. I don't know that it ever will, unless he delivers another movie that is like mind-blowingly great. But I don't know that the twist thing is ever going to completely be erased completely. What do you think?
uh, not. I mean, not if he doesn't wanted to. I mean, this old was, I think, almost like completely. It was distributed by Universal. I think almost like completely like self-financed too. Like,
Mm.
so I do think that like he has enough money to also do these, and they're considerably smaller. Old feels smaller as a movie in comparison to the first few of his, I'd say.
Yeah, but budget-wise, it doesn't feel like a super ostentatious Hollywood production. I would say, like Lady in the Water did. Like
Yeah, yeah,
like
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
one felt like it. You mentioned like all the different names of people that are in it, and like just with the effects and like the rain and like it just that was very much a Hollywood production. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas and not necessarily always to his detriment. Like one I actually thought, which I did like, which I felt, I don't know if it's called a comeback, but like the visit, right? The visitor, the visit.
is it? Yeah,
Which I thought was a good like back to basics kind of thing, if you will. And I
I
think that
think
was also a hit
that
with
was the point with that one too.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think he was like putting up some of his own money, um, because yeah, he had burned some. There was a book called "The Man Who Heard Voices," which was about his struggle to get. He wanted to do Lady in the Water at Univista, and they turned it down. And there was a whole.
Right.
So he went to Warner Brothers, and that was supposed to be a big get for Warner Brothers, and obviously that never. That was the last project he made with Warner Brothers. But yeah, so I do think when he actually like has some adversity and has to like um whittle down, I guess, make things a little bit smaller, that I don't know. I'm not saying that he's successful there either, but at least that it makes it somewhat more interesting.
And so we haven't mentioned the movie called Devil, which he didn't direct,
Yeah.
but it did come from him from a story point of view, and he was the producer on it. And I don't know if you remember this, Eric, but
Yeah,
that was supposed to be the start of like these kind of smaller production films where he would hire these, up and coming directors, and they would make these little horror movies, little thriller movies, and they would all
Yeah.
come from his, production company.
And
Um,
to the general public, they thought it was like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like I think it was like M.
exactly.
Night Shyamalan Presents, but
Yeah.
like that was the most
Everybody,
prominent thing on the poster and trailer and everything.
nobody can tell you who directed that movie.
Who
It
was it?
Because it was promoted like it was an M. Night Shyamalan
Yeah.
movie. And the problem is, it is really, really bad. But in case anybody wanted to know, it's John Eric Dowdle. And yes, I had to click on the link to the movie to remember who that was. So
Has he worked since? What's he up to? I'll look him up.
yeah, well, while Eric is looking up John Eric Dowdle, so yeah, he also moved to TV for a little bit with the show Wayward Pines that came in 2015, and I guess he's also directed episodes of the show Servant,
Yeah.
which is still going on. I guess I haven't watched it, but
They just did a second, and that's also because I think he wrote and directed that one, and his daughter is now at NYU, and she
she's a
was
musician, right?
sorry.
One of his daughters is a musician, I think.
Yes, she sings the closing credits song in Old.
Yeah,
The other he has a bunch of kids, but
he has 3 kids.
yeah, Hollywood kids, man, they get their way into the movies. Yeah, so his filmmaker daughter, she did second unit directing on Old,
Oh,
and
okay.
she like directed 2 episodes of the new season of Servant.
Oh, interesting.
Um, so I guess that's how. Yeah, it's pretty much an M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know if it's a showrunner, but
Right,
he's not. Yeah, that's like a his project kind of thing.
right. Well, um, so obviously, what we haven't talked about, and I think I could guess what Eric's opinion is, based on what his comments were off camera. But the visit was a little bit of a return to form for him. But the movie that really brought his name back into the ether, so to speak, was Split, which starred James McAvoy. And I'll be honest, I thought.
And James McAvoy and James McAvoy and James McAvoy.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Um, I actually thought Split was a good movie, but what people remember about it the most is the twist, which it was a twist. Was it a
But like the
twist that?
movie, if that felt like I don't know, like a post credits.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't. I don't know, like if that has anything to do with the. I wish that wasn't in there because.
no, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you because I thought the movie that followed it, Glass, was not all that spectacular. It wasn't horrible, but like
yeah.
it wasn't what people were hoping for. And again, that you could probably say that about a lot of his movies. But obviously, spoiler, if you have seen Split, you know that at the end you see Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable, and then you realize that that's in the same universe as Unbreakable, which kind of blew people's minds at the time. And I didn't. I saw that one digitally. I didn't even see it in theaters, and I had no idea. I had no idea that that was even a thing. I just knew that people were talking about Split, that it had gotten some positive feedback. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll see it, because by that time I had all but signed off on Shyamalan's movies because they were
Yeah.
all so terrible at that
Yeah.
point.
And Split, I thought was actually like did have like a. I don't know. Again, like as all of his movies do, they all have pretty good premises,
Right.
at least. And I think that one as well. And it has a. I don't know if it's a very good performance or it's a bad. Like the James McAvoy, I go hot or cold on. Like I could also see someone being very offended by it in certain ways. I could.
It's quite the performance. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a lot of acting.
Oh yeah.
You know,
A lot of times the multiple personality thing is used as a twist and a way to, wrap up a storyline that is unbelievable or ridiculous. And in this case, I like
Yeah,
the fact that they were not trying to hide behind it. It was
it
just,
worked in
this is
Psycho.
what it was,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. I still have debates with people about the movie Identity to this day. I hate that movie. Hate it, as one
Yeah.
people would say. Hate it, hate it, hate it. But but yeah, I mean, Split was okay, and then everybody was really really looking forward to Glass, which was going to have Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis and James McAvoy, and it was going to be the end of a trilogy, I guess. And Glass was just kind of mediocre. It was what it was.
Which I also thought was strange. Like, I don't remember Unbreakable being so beloved. Like the whole idea when they're like, "Oh, it's Bruce Willis," and they're gonna, I'm like, "Of that movie?" Like, okay, like, do people remember that there's a guy named Mr. Glass? Like, I don't know. Maybe these are different circles that I'm in, but like, I don't remember Unbreakable being some gigantic hit. That
I
like,
did like Unbreakable a lot. Now I haven't seen it. I had not seen it since it came out.
it just seemed to, of all the extended universe properties of like, this is gonna have an extended, like, I don't know, like when
Right.
they, that's why I saw Glass, but like I couldn't get excited about it because it just felt,
It is interesting you mentioned the extended universe thing. He was trying to kind of dip into that a little bit, that the popularity of all these universes in in cinema, by kind of making a mini version of his own in a way.
yeah, I get, yeah, it's just yeah,
I say
Glass.
go, I say go all the way with it if you're going to do that. Have Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah,
There,
yeah, every single one of his films are all, well, they, I mean, they're all outside of old, but the character is from the is Philadelphia based, or like
a
right
lot of
up.
them are a lot of them are set in the PA area. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, Philly is its own extended universe, in my opinion. Go down Walnuts, whole different group of people. But yeah.
Oh, you froze there for a second,
Oh,
Eric.
that was a Shyamalan twist.
Yeah. So one of the things I just kind of briefly touched on it, and I'll get your opinion here, is that I don't know that too many of his movies lend themselves to being rewatchable, because although they're well made and well acted, as we've discussed, when they have that twist, that twist just isn't the same when you go to watch it again and again and again. It's kind of the old adage of, like, you in the movie 50 First Dates, one of the recurring jokes is that the main character Drew Barrymore plays, every day she wakes up and she uh, you know
Amnesia. Yeah.
she has, yeah, amnesia, she forgets, so she rewatches the movie The Sixth Sense every day and is surprised by the twist every day, whereas her brother and her father have seen it every day, literally, so they don't care about it. But I think that his movies do suffer to that, with that, to a certain degree, with the exception of a couple. But
Well,
what
that's
do you
what.
think?
Yeah, because
Do you think that his movies are rewatchable despite it, or do you think that the twist is kind of a double-edged sword?
um, I think they're. I mean, honestly, I don't even, like, I won't downplay the twist of like the Sixth Sense, but I don't think that's the most memorable thing about. I know it's the most popular thing about the movie, but I wouldn't say it's the most memorable thing. But I mean, I think the kid with the gunshot wound in the back of his head when he turns around,
Yeah.
and an actual pretty good Donnie Wahlberg, like Tony Collette in the car crying when he's,
There's a lot of great scenes in it,
yeah.
absolutely.
So it's kind of like unfortunate that people would just. I mean, I understand why they associate with the twist, obviously, but I mean, there's a lot more to it than just that. Like, so Drew Barrymore's stupid. No, but yeah. So I don't know, and also I've never been. I don't think the twist of any movie needs to necessarily completely zap your enjoyment of. That's what. So like Signs, twist-ish, but not really. I mean, there's a lot of water bottles because they're afraid of water. Like, okay, if you call that a twist, then we're not judging all twists as, what I mean. There's there's
Well,
a,
you know what, and
you know.
I would almost say that the twist in that movie is not just the water part of it. Um,
That Mel Gibson's a good father, but no.
I would say that the fact that, you know, the connection that's made between the mom who had died and the fact that the kid had asthma, you know, and that's kind of what saved him in a way. I thought that that was just as surprising as the water part of it. But
Yeah. But that's another one. Where I'm like, I wouldn't even, if you want to call that a twist. Like it was definitely clear that he was trying to go away from that. And also that movie has like people. I remember freaking out so much over the Walking Phoenix watching the news, and you see the alien guy walk by, which is kind of funny now. But
right,
it's a big jump scare. Or when Mel Gibson puts like a shard of glass underneath the door to see if the alien is in the other room, like
right.
oh, and the scene with his wife as she's dying, like pretty good, um, stuff. I mean, that I wouldn't just associate, with the ending.
Well, you know, and since you mentioned Signs, I'll just say this now. That would probably be my favorite of his movies.
Yeah,
That's the movie that I've seen the most, and for reasons that you just touched on, I don't think that the twist is as big of a deal there.
yeah,
I just think it's a good story, and I think it's well told, and I think that the unexpected parts of the story, the surprises, what have you, are work well within the story. I think that they make a lot of sense. I think it's one of the best performances Mel Gibson has ever given, and I
he
love.
like it's such a he found not found, but like Abigail Breslin.
Yeah,
But this is years even before Little Miss Sunshine, and
yeah, true.
stuff like this,
Yeah, I like the way that the aliens were portrayed in the movie in terms of like what would a aliens coming to Earth look like? How would it be filmed on the news, and how would we react?
yeah,
I thought that it one of the reasons why the movie is scary at times is for that reason, because it seems at times anyway pretty realistic.
yeah.
But
And
yeah,
that was a great use of rural Pennsylvania. I feel like
yeah,
crop circles and fields, and one cop in town.
right,
It's funny now thinking back of these films too. I also, unfortunately, this was the era of scary movie franchise, and so I also remember the parodies of these, which were
yeah.
also. It was a weird time. It was a weird time. So like sometimes maybe I confuse the two, unfortunately.
So what's your favorite of his movies?
I would say, and I don't feel so strongly about any of them. I'll just say that as a disclaimer. But then I would say The Village. I really like The Village. Regardless of twist, I just think it's also like a really interesting movie for the first, even taking the plot, I guess, if you will, out of it, or for what it's building up for the first hour. Like it is very unsettling and just
Right.
creepy. And I think it uses the limited location very well. And yeah, and I think it's his only. Trying to think now, like it's not. You think it's a period piece, but it turns out not to be. But I think it
Oh
would.
man, spoiler, Eric. Jeez.
I mean, some people have said like, okay, once you find out that it's not, it is the current present day. Why are they speaking in like old English stuff? And I'm like, hey, look, if you're cosplaying, you want to go all the way. You're growing your kids up with.
And that's sort of the thing. Like, you with his movies, you either suspend your disbelief and you buy into it and you're willing to accept it, or you're not, or there's a point where it just kind of goes over the edge. And I think the same could be said in maybe a lesser degree about Old as well. Like, you suspend your disbelief for a little bit, but you know some people look at his movies and are very
Yeah,
analytical.
yeah, and I think The Village was a turning point because like I think it's almost like he builds in two twists. One is you think they're creatures, turns out they're not.
Right,
Parents playing dress up, which when you first come across your parents playing dress up as a kid, it is traumatic. And the second twist is that it's the present. So at that point, like it was almost designed to piss off people who were coming in, I think, to like pick apart
right,
and hate the twist no matter what, right? Because that's what a lot of people were doing. That's a lot of people were going to these movies at that point.
right.
So
But yeah, well, that's interesting. I would not have guessed that as your pick.
yeah,
But
I mean, I like signs, and I feel like we should also say that like you can't say The Sixth Sense, just because I feel like that's almost universally agreed upon. It's like being a very very good movie. That
Right.
if you were to take that out, what would be your favorite? So I go with The Village.
But when my kids are older, that'll be one that I look forward to introducing them to.
It's
At
gonna,
some point.
it'll yeah, you gotta let me know. It'll be interesting. Yeah,
We're
as
a
you're
long ways away from that with my kids, by the way. I'm trying to get them to watch Ghostbusters, and they're not having it. So
yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting though, as a case study, if like they will know about um the because I knew a lot of movies growing up like based on what happens in them before I even saw them.
right,
And so I wonder
that'll be a hard one for them to avoid.
if you mention The Sixth Sense and they Google it, boom, it's over. I mean, in that regard.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Now, you know what? That's probably more realistic than what you think. Like, if I ask them when they're like 13 or 14, hey, do you want to watch The Sixth Sense?
What's that,
No,
Dad? What's that? Oh God.
no, yeah, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is a kid who sees dead people and the guy's dead. Nah, no.
Yeah, that will be. I guarantee you that's the first Google search result. You know that Bruce Wells dead detective. He's dead. That's it. Like that's it. That'll be the first line on Google. I swear. So that'll be that yes. Introduce each of the films to them. Uh, Maybe don't give them the title. Don't tell them beforehand.
We're
Or
gonna watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It'll be a surprise twist as to which one it is.
exactly. And
They're not
no,
gonna understand what that joke is, but
no. Well, they will after the 10th one.
yeah. Now we're gonna watch. The only one left will be The Happening, and they'll be like, "Oh God."
The last one is Stuart Little because we honor his writing contributions.
Yeah. The last one is Praying with Anger. Okay.
Yeah, go reverse chronological order. I feel like, or show them. Do you remember? Sorry, this is a tangent, but I thought about this again recently. When The Village came out, Sci-Fi did a fake documentary about him.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like the secrets of I don't know. They tried to make it seem like he was a guy who like actually had like supernatural I don't know powers, abilities. It was so freaking ridiculous, but it's got to be on YouTube.
Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
like
like
a 2 hour documentary.
there was a hoax
Yeah.
with the Sci-Fi Channel. Basically, that they're trying to show you that on the set of The Village, that as a child, Shyamalan had been dead for a half hour while he drowned in a frozen pond in an accident, and then upon being rescued, he had experiences communicating with spirits.
And they interviewed like I remember Johnny Depp is interviewed, and like they're playing it up like it's a real thing. Like you have to be pretty daft to think that is real, but I remember at the time it was like that was a real thing that came out, and even that, imagine that happening with another filmmaker. Like
Yeah.
there was a whole
True.
mystique and aura around that.
And so I should add as one footnote that he has been accused of plagiarism quite a few occasions. Um, None of them have gone anywhere, though, for
Yeah,
whatever.
because after the movie's reviews came out, they were like, "No, not our idea. That was not our idea. No, you take it. You take it."
Nobody's claiming that he plagiarized, the Lady in the Water.
They're like, no, all you. That is all original. You can take that. You can take that as far as you'd like.
uh,
But will you? I have to admit, I don't know why, but like, I will still see his movies.
I hope that he continues to make movies going forward, because he is still a director that when he makes something, you want to check it out. And I don't know that will ever go away either. If the twist thing is still part of his career, I think the fact that people are interested in what he delivers, whether it's good or bad, I think people are still curious as to what he will give them. And I hope he continues to make movies. I would be interested to see him successfully branch out to a different genre. I don't think that's going to happen, though. As I said, he's kind of settled in with the making thrillers now. And hey, if that's his niche, that's great. And I hope that he can
Yeah.
deliver good ones. So
Yeah, I'm always going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard. And yeah, and I think like we said with him being a real name for like market value, I think at this point he's tied to like writing all of his own stuff.
Yeah,
Like I used to think, oh, if he worked with a different writer or whatever, but I feel like an M Night Shyamalan movie is an M Night Shyamalan movie.
right.
And like Tarantino, you wouldn't really see direct a movie that he didn't write. Things like that. So, um, it'll be cool to see what's it. Maybe it's a remake of the Missouri Breaks. Who knows? Like,
So Eric, we've waited all this time. Where is John Eric Dowdle? And
so he directed. So funny enough that he made as so now I took that As Above, So Below.
oh,
The
okay,
Catacomb, the Paris Catacomb
yeah.
zombie movie, pretty bad. That's where he is. He's underneath the Eiffel Tower.
Oh.
And he had made a movie 3 years earlier called Quarantine, which you remember that found
Yep.
footage, which was about 13 years ahead of its time, really.
Isn't that the remake of the movie REC?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So he's not doing much of anything.
So yes, if you haven't been keeping up with his filmography, you're all the better for it. But yes, it was.
He's exactly the type of person though that would like hear our show and get pissed at what we're saying. So
Look again, as I'll also always say, I am always willing to give John Eric Dowdle the benefit of the doubt. Oh, he co-created the miniseries Waco, which was like 3 years ago, which I heard was pretty good. So, and I mean,
well, Mr. Dowdle, I hope that you continue to make movies as well.
he has a brother, Drew Dowell, and they
We don't know how to say your name clearly. That's
Sorry, guys, but I'm excited to see what you do next, of course.
absolutely. And let us know what you think of M. Night Shyamalan, what your favorite or least favorite movie is. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. Give us a like on this video if you're watching us. Subscribe to our channel. All the things. Do all the things to help us grow. So for Eric, my name is Chad. Those are our real names. No twists.
No, well, yeah, that's true. Could you imagine if this whole time it was like Eric's a nickname? It was like
What if you stood up like Bruce Willis and there's actually a gunshot wound? You're dead, really? So
I'm telling you. Oh man, that's yeah. I don't know.
You spill water on yourself and you die because you're an alien. We're just getting.
I kind of want to watch all these movies again.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. I've left this like thinking to myself, maybe I should give this another chance.
I'm now thinking of like Mel Gibson. Like there's like a dinner table scene where you get like this big argument and it's really good.
Yeah.
But like, so they have stayed in my head, and I haven't seen them in a very, very long time. So there's someday, long from now, I don't know, but maybe I will revisit them. There'll be a
we'll do another installment of our segment. You dubbed
the next one.
Did he direct that? Remember that?
Yes. Well, that I don't think you can ever mistake with M. Night Shyamalan. I don't think you can ever get.
It'll be Wide Awake, that one with Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes.
Did he direct that? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us.